Hello once again, readers of good books. My name is Nick Pell, and this is once again coming from my college dorm room. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the book Genghis Khan and the Making of the Modern World by Jack Weatherford. This is a book that essentially is a history of the Mongol Empire. It starts out with Genghis Khan as a child and seeing his whole life play out, and then it goes into his descendants from there. This is essentially a history book. It talks about, like I said, the Mongol Empire and its history. So there's not really a spoiler-esque part, so I'll be covering the whole entire book before the credits roll. So starting out, the book follows Genghis Khan in the very beginnings of his life. Jack Weatherford and his team in the introduction to the book talk about how they found this secret history of the Mongols, and they used that very large majority of their information for the book itself. And throughout a large majority of the book, there's references made to it, and it's written, I believe, in Chinese, but don't quote me on that. But the book starts out with Genghis Khan as a child. It shows his life, about his father, his mother, him having to pick a wife, and him falling in love with a wife named Borte. Essentially showing all of the major things that he dealt with in his life. It talks about his experiences with his blood brother Genghis, and seeing how this best friend that he had eventually grew into his enemy as they became rivals in an attempt to unite all of the Mongol tribes. They both had different philosophies. Genghis Khan was a very open type of person. He was okay with a lot of different religions. He ended a lot of Mongol traditions, such as attacking different people in order to get their wives. After plundering a certain area, he ended the idea that the Khan, which is the name of the leader of a tribe of Mongols, gets the large majority of the plunder. No, he ended up taking 10%, and then he would distribute the rest throughout all of his people. And that was something that which had never really been done before. There's huge religious tolerance in Genghis Khan's rule, as would be in his later descendants. It just shows that a lot of the depictions of Genghis Khan in this time are actually really, really false. He was a very good leader. Whenever he attacked a settlement, he basically gave them two options. Either pledge your allegiance to me, essentially, and I'll let your rulers stay in power as long as they pay tribute to me once a month. Many of the settlements did not choose to do this before they started to become aware of the Mongol power, and in fact Genghis Khan was taking over a large majority of Europe and Asia. Well, not Europe, but more Asia. And if they didn't submit, he would essentially wipe out the whole city and salt it, stop it from ever being powerful again. And we see him rise up from this child who's put into slavery once or twice, and seeing him rise from essentially poverty and a very low class of Mongol into this rising general and leader, and seeing the relationships they formed and all this type of stuff. There's an immense amount I could say about Genghis Khan, but I don't want this review to be 20 minutes, so I'm just going to be talking about a very small amount of it. And so we get to the end. He died in 1227, and it's not really known why he died, but there's rumors of poison, there's rumors of assassination, but he died the leader of an empire and one of the strongest conquerors the world has ever known, who rivals even Alexander the Great in some ways. His followers, which take over the second half of the book is split into 3 different sections, FYI, so about midway through book 2, or section 2, is when Genghis Khan gets killed. His successor is his son, Odagai, and he is essentially the 3rd eldest son, because his 2 eldest sons could not decide who among them would rule, because his eldest son Jochi could have been a bastard child because his mother was taken and found pregnant, so it wasn't really known if Genghis Khan was the father or not. And then his actual eldest son, the legitimate heir, was thought to be the second eldest son. So they both fought over who would gain the right to rule, and so they just decided to give the right to one guy, and he essentially did a lot of the opposite type of things that Genghis Khan did. He basically gave away a lot of the wealth in terms of gold and silver and valuable items throughout a lot of people in the empire, and basically emptied out a lot of the treasury that the Mongols had stored up throughout the world. And he built up large buildings and city structures. He established a set capital, and he was a drunkard. He liked to party a lot. He did a lot of things that Genghis Khan did not do, and he wasn't the best ruler for the people at the time. Eventually, though, as the years progressed, and rulers like Gayok and Monkey, and eventually the Kublai Khan, they expanded the empire. They essentially established their empire over vast trading routes. That is how they kept the whole empire connected. It was through trading routes, and that's how a lot of the wealth was established. The economy was immensely wealthy, and eventually pressed into Europe, and it was just this immense empire, and it spread to China. Eventually, due to disputes, the empire started to be split up into 4 different regions. The empire was essentially split up into 4 different regions. We had the Golden Khan in Russia, we had the Ilkhanate in Persia and Iraq, we had the Yuan dynasty in China, and we had the Mughal Empire in India. And this is essentially the 4 different regions that the place splits into on behalf of Genghis Khan's grandsons, I believe. And I mean, there are disputes between all the different brothers and grandsons and uncles and all these type of people, but the empire did stay together because they all had monetary gains. They were all relatively wealthy. Kublai Khan, he was probably one of the best rulers in the kingdom. He's someone who received Marco Polo. He tried to learn more about Europe, and just was a very interesting ruler, and he was the last prominent ruler of the Mongol dynasty and the last ruler that the book covers, because in, I want to say, like the 1270s or so, that's when the bubonic plague hit and the Black Death. So that wiped out a huge majority of Europe and Asia, thanks to all the trade routes. And because this plague was becoming so imminent, cities began to not allow outsiders in. They cooped themselves up to try to keep out the plague, but it still got in at some points. Enemies would start to launch corpses that were infected with the plague at the city walls to kill off the population. It was just hugely ridiculous. That's what essentially destroyed the empire, and if the bubonic plague had not happened, it would be really interesting to see the difference in the world structure compared to what it became and what it could have been. Yeah, if you can't tell, I really did enjoy this book, because I hadn't really known a lot about the Mongol Empire, or Genghis Khan for that matter, until I read this. I knew he was a Mongol, I knew he was a conqueror. I didn't really know how much he had conquered. I didn't know his policies or his ruling tactics or anything, and he was a very interesting person, and definitely someone to acknowledge and admire, and to see as one of the greatest people in the recent millennia. Yeah, that is my review of Genghis Khan and the making of the modern world. Definitely check it out if you are into history, or you want to know more about Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire. Jack Weatherford, he has written a few other books based around this thing and other history texts as well. So yeah, definitely check those out if you are interested at all. It's definitely a really good read, and you'll find out a lot of more things than I was able to put into this review. So yeah, that is it. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. I'd appreciate it immensely. And as always, my good people, my name is Nick Pell, and once again, keep on reading.